Hello, this is Jessica from goodenoughandstuff.com. Welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be making a no zipper circle skirt. For this project you'll need a sewing machine, 2-inch wide elastic, 1/4-inch elastic, thread, scissors, fabric. I used one flat sheet that I found at a flea market, tape measure, marking tools, and pins. For my birthday this year, Nathan took me to like a flea market / permanent carnival, and I was able to find these sheet sets that I really love. Here's the wide elastic I used. I only used it for the purpose of keeping the structure of the band, so it's not really being used because it's stretchy. It's just that it's stiffer, but it's flexible still, so it's comfortable, but it will keep the shape of the band as you wear it. Plus, I already had it on hand and it'll wash well. This is the 1/4-inch elastic. You're not going to need very much of this, maybe like a foot or two. To get started, measure the widest part of your hips. Now you want to measure how long you want your skirt. Measure from your waist to how far down you want it to go. Make sure to follow the tape measure down as you go against your leg so that it doesn't pull out at all and you get a weird measurement. If you want a ruffle at the bottom, you're going to want to subtract that amount from however long you want it to be. So I wanted my skirt to be about 21 inches, so I only measured it down 19 inches since I knew I was going to do a 2-inch ruffle at the bottom. Wash and dry your fabric. The reason why you want to do this is because fabric often will stretch and shrink in weird ways, and you want to make sure it does all of that before you start sewing. Fold your fabric into quarters and then find the corner that has no open edges. To get the opening for the top of your skirt, you need to take the measurement of your hips and divide it by 3.14. Then divide that number by 2. So for example, my hip measurement was 41 inches. So I divided 41 by 3.14 and got about 13. Then I divided that by 2 and got about 6.5. So I will measure from that corner we just found down 6.5 inches. Keeping one end of the tape measure on the corner, measure down the number you just found. Mine was 6.5 inches. Make a mark every few inches all the way across. Connect the marks to form a curved line. Now take the skirt's length measurement and starting at the curved line you just made, measure down from there. Make a mark every few inches. To make this one a little bit more accurate than what I did, you could just add your length measurement to your top measurement, so I would add the 19 plus the 6.5 inches, and then still just measure from the corner all the way down and make a curved line from there. So I decided actually to do a 4-inch ruffle instead. So I did 4.5 inches just to give it a little bit more room for the seam on the top and then the, what's it called? The hem on the bottom, goodness. Mark the ruffle in the same way you did the other sections, but you're going to want to do this twice because in order to have a good ruffle, you want to have at least 1.5 times whatever you are attaching it to. I forgot to do this the first time, so I had to come back way later and do the second row of ruffle so that I had enough to actually put it on the whole skirt. Cut each section out and discard the corner. Measure 4.5 inches down the bottom edge of the sheet to make the tie. Cut a length of the wide elastic that reaches from one side of your waist to the other. You don't want it to go all the way around, it doesn't need to be in the back. Now grab your fabric for your tie and fold it in half, find the middle and mark it with a pin, then fold your elastic in half and mark the middle of that with a pin too. Fold the edge over about 1/2 inch and then pin the middles together. Now fold down and pin that 1/2 inch all the way down on either side of the elastic on that whole side. And sew it. Now we're going to enclose the elastic. So you want to fold the opposite end up enough so that when you fold it in half over the elastic, it meets the other end evenly. Pin the whole thing all the way down on either side of the elastic also. Now would be a good time to iron everything if you want it to have nice clean lines and have it not shift around as much on you, but I don't really like to iron things. I try really hard not to, so I'm just kind of pressing things with my fingers as I pin it along, kind of hoping that it won't like shift too much, and it was okay. Once you've got it pinned, you're going to want to turn it over so you can see the seam that you sewed already, and you're going to sew through that seam first, and that's called stitching in the ditch. Flip the band around and sew a seam all the way down on the other side so that now you have 2 seams on either side all the way down the length. This will keep your elastic from shifting around ever, and it just looks nice and tidy too. I can't seem to find the footage of me sewing the other side of the tie, but you can see when I'm showing this close-up of how to do the end of the tie that there are seams on either side. To finish off the ends of the tie, you want to fold the edge over a little and then fold that whole thing across to kind of make a triangle shape. Then you sew down and across. Make sure that you pin them first, both, before you sew them so that you know that they're both going like opposite directions on either side of the tie. Set the tie aside, then take your skirt out, turn it inside out, and roll the top over twice, then sew, and that is the hem for the top. This can be a little bit finicky because it's a curved edge, so what you can do to relieve that a little bit is to make little clips all the way around it, like about 1/2 centimeter, and then you just roll and sew the way you see me doing here. Grab the tie and face this side downward toward the bottom of the skirt. Match the waistband tie thing to the top of the skirt and pin it across the top just where there's elastic. Sew across the top, stitching in the ditch again. This is the exact method I used in making the band for the easy apron I made in my 1-hour apron video, so I will leave a link in the description or a card at the top that you can click on. Now it's time to pin the bottom of the band. The easiest way to do this is to slip a book in between and then arrange all the gathers so that they're even, and then pin across the bottom of the band. Now sew across the bottom line of the band, stitching in the ditch again. Also sew up the sides of the band right where the elastic ends. Here's how it looks so far. The band looks really great at the top and the tie looks really nice, but you have all this extra fabric just kind of hanging out in the back. Turn your skirt inside out and grab your thin elastic. Measure and cut a piece of elastic for the back of your skirt. Make sure you stretch it as you measure. Fold it in half and mark the middle with a pin. Fold your skirt in half to find the middle of the back of your skirt. Mark that with a pin also, and then match the pin from the elastic to the pin from the back of the skirt, and pin it together. Now pin one side of the elastic all the way to where the band stops, and pin the other side to where the other side of the band stops. Quick side note, don't pin it to the very top like I did. Pin it like an inch or 2 down, otherwise it'll wrinkle up and then you'll be able to see the elastic when you're just wearing it, so make sure you pin it down a little bit. Set your machine to a zigzag stitch. Now sew the elastic on. You want to hold the fabric before and after where it's actually sewing, and then you're going to want to stretch it and kind of move it along through. Stretch the elastic so that it matches the length of the fabric. And again, just don't sew it like I did right at the edge here. Put your elastic like an inch or 2 down. I'll show you a picture in just a second of what I mean. I also ended up doing 2 rows of elastic just because the first one ended up being too big and it wasn't tight enough in the back. So I added a second one that was shorter in length and did it the same way I added the first one, but I should have added the very first one, I should have made it shorter and then put it an inch or 2 down, right where you see it says sew the first piece here. Here's the back of the skirt with the elastic all sewn on. Because I had it at the very top, you can see it through all of the gathers. If you finish sewing the elastic and you find that it's still too big, you can always turn it inside out like you had it before and then sew across the elastic to kind of give it a dart or 2, and then you just do that until you have it tight enough in the back. Set your machine back to its regular stitch. Take your 2 rows of ruffles and sew the ends right sides together to form one long thing of ruffle. Now we're going to do a basting stitch. Here are the normal settings for my machine. To do a basting stitch, you need to set your machine to the widest stitch length that you can. Mine goes up to 5. Sew all the way down the length of this ruffle without backstitching at all, either at the beginning or at the end. When you're done, you'll have 2 strings hanging off of either end of the ruffle. Now gently pull one of the strings and gather the fabric all the way down the length, but remember that you do have extra fabric for this ruffle because you only really needed 1.5 of the lengths and you have 2 of the lengths. So gather it the amount that you like, and then we will pin it to the skirt. Here's what mine looks like after I gathered it. I didn't really gather it very much. I just like a really gentle ruffle. Lay your skirt right side out and then put your ruffle right sides together with that. Pin your ruffle to the skirt starting from the front and working your way towards the back so that it meets up at the back of the skirt. Now that you're at the back, you want to trim off the extra of the ruffle and then sew those 2 together, right sides together. Then you want to kind of pin it so that it all kind of evenly lays onto the skirt. Sew the ruffle to the bottom of the skirt. Okay, now we are going to hem the very bottom of the skirt. You just need to roll it over twice and sew it all the way down the length. This can be a little bit tricky because it's on a curve just like at the top, but it's kind of going the opposite direction of the one at the top, so instead of cutting little lines, you can cut little triangles out of the fabric just on the edge, and this should kind of help ease the fabric into the hem. I didn't really do that here, but it did end up making it a little bit more difficult, and the edge ended up being kind of like rippled, where it wouldn't if you do cut the little triangles out. This is also another instance where pinning and ironing is probably a good idea if you want it to make it look really nice and perfect. All that's left is to cut all the strings off and see how it turned out. I think this turned out just lovely and perfect for summer. I didn't worry about making it perfect or ironing it or anything like that because it already has a blue popsicle stain on the front. I've only worn it a couple of times. So this is just for me to wear around the house and to feel pretty. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you liked it. Please comment, like, subscribe, and share, and then check out my website, goodenoughandstuff.com, for more recipes and tutorials and fun family stuff, and I'll see you next time.